This is the part they're trying to hide from you. 40 seconds of a recording smuggled out of a classified briefing room at the Vice President's residence. J.D. Vance, the man who usually keeps his composure when the lights are on, absolutely hitting the ceiling. And once you hear what he said regarding Judge Caldwell, you'll realize why insiders at the White House are using a single word: war. Not a figure of speech, not a media stunt, a literal constitutional battle. Because what Judge Caldwell just pulled off, throwing witness 14 in a cell without a word of explanation, locking down the entire record, and challenging the administration to stop him, shattered every boundary that's supposed to separate our branches of government. Vance got the news in real time, and his response? It is currently the most viral audio file across 3 continents. So what exactly pushed the vice president to his limit? One phone call, one snap judgment, one judge who assumed no one would dare strike back. Judge Caldwell looked witness 14 in the eye, a key cooperator in the most high-stakes immigration case of the decade, and sent him to jail on the spot. Zero notice, zero due process, zero public record of why. But here is the reality. This wasn't an accident. This was weeks of judicial overreach finally reaching a breaking point. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how the gears came off. That leaked audio everyone is searching for? It's coming up. But first, you have to grasp what Witness 14 actually represents and why Judge Caldwell was so desperate to bury him. Because Witness 14 isn't just a random deportee or a line in a ledger. According to sources with first-hand knowledge of the case, this witness was set to expose a secret alliance between specific judicial figures and activist groups working to sabotage federal immigration laws. That isn't a theory. That is what multiple witnesses in that room say was about to be revealed. And then, 45 minutes before that testimony could begin, Judge Caldwell made his move. The timing wasn't a mistake, it was a tactic, and J.D. Vance recognized it the moment he was briefed. Here is what really went down, the exact moment a legal hearing turned into a national crisis. Tuesday morning, a high-security federal building. Witness 14 arrived under heavy DOJ guard, flanked by U.S. Marshals. He walked in, ready to speak. You could see it in his demeanor, back straight, eyes locked, the look of a man who had made his peace with the truth. Observers noted he looked steady, almost relieved. The hearing was supposed to be a formality. Witness 14 would give his statement, the lawyers would cross-examine, the record would be set. That is when Judge Caldwell emerged from his chambers, with an expression that put the security detail on edge. He didn't even sit. He stood behind the bench, moved exactly 2 files, and declared that due to unforeseen national security risks he wouldn't name, Witness 14 was being remanded to federal custody indefinitely. The room went silent. This witness will remain detained until this court decides if his testimony threatens classified interests. Marshals, take him. The government's lead attorney jumped up. Your Honor, this man is under federal protection according to... Counselor, take your seat. This court's mandate outweighs your agency's personal preferences. That word, preferences, that's what ignited the fire. Because protecting a federal witness isn't a preference, it's the law. And Judge Caldwell just shredded it and tossed it aside on a live courtroom mic. Witness 14 was hurried out a side exit. No chance to object, no clarity on what classified matters supposedly justified a cage. The whole sequence took less than 3 minutes. But here is the twist they didn't see coming. The court reporter's mic was still live. Every sentence, every breath, every arrogant syllable from Judge Caldwell's mouth. And within 2 hours, that audio was in the hands of the only people who knew how to use it. The first call went to the DOJ. The second call went to the West Wing. The third call went directly to J.D. Vance's private encrypted line. And that is when the fuse was lit. Because while the administration had been attempting to address judicial overreach through the proper channels, filing motions, releasing statements, playing by the rules, Judge Caldwell had just made that impossible. You do not incarcerate a protected federal witness. You certainly don't incarcerate one who is seconds away from testifying about potential collusion between the bench and outside interest groups. And you absolutely do not do it while claiming national security powers you don't actually possess. Vance played the audio 3 times. According to an observer in the room, he didn't utter a word during the first 2 loops. The third time, he paused it halfway through Judge Caldwell's preferences remark and looked directly at his chief counsel. That's it. That's the line. What transpired in the following 37 seconds is now the focus of a massive firestorm inside Washington. Because Vance didn't issue a press release, he didn't call for a measured inquiry, he went somewhere nobody anticipated, and a microphone was live. The leaked audio, which I've confirmed with 2 independent sources, captures the Vice President of the United States saying things about a sitting federal judge that would have been unimaginable 6 months ago. Unimaginable, but perhaps not wrong. Because what Judge Caldwell did wasn't just bold, it wasn't just overreach. According to legal experts I've consulted, it may have been the single most defiant judicial strike against executive authority since the Civil War. And J.D. Vance reacted exactly the way you'd expect from someone who's watched judges erode democratic accountability for months. He declared war. If you're watching this thinking it's about time someone exposed this, hit subscribe right now, because the details I'm about to drop regarding that leaked audio and the fallout it sparked, nobody else has this, and you are going to want to hear every word. But not everyone sees it that way. Civil rights groups are branding this the most reckless escalation of executive aggression in modern American history. And honestly, when you hear their side, you might understand why. Their logic is straightforward. Judges exist to restrain executive overreach. That isn't corruption, that is the Constitution working. And when an administration attacks a judge for doing his duty, they aren't defending democracy, they're dismantling it. One prominent legal director put it this way: "What we saw was a judge making a tough call in a classified hearing where he had access to data the public doesn't see. The vice president's reaction, calling for what looks like judicial bullying, is exactly what authoritarians do. It's classic." The internet is melting down with opposition backlash. Viral posts calling Vance unstable, threads comparing the administration to regimes that throw judges in prison, warnings that Witness 14's arrest might have been totally legal based on the government's own information. And here is the hard truth. Judge Caldwell does have authority over his own courtroom. He does have the right to protect classified data. That isn't a theory. People are acting like this judge went off the rails, one judicial advocate noted, but federal judges ordered detentions every single day. The only difference here is that the executive branch hated this specific decision. Since when does the White House get to cancel judicial discretion? So, who is right? Is Vance actually protecting the balance of power, or did he just show his hand when a judge refused to fall in line? Is Judge Caldwell shielding secrets, or is he gagging a witness who is about to reveal something toxic? That is the question no one wants to answer. And the deeper you look, the messier it gets. Because the reality is, both sides have the documents, both sides have the legal standing, and both sides are convinced the other is burning the country down. But this didn't happen in a vacuum. 6 weeks before this explosion, the red flags were everywhere. It began with a basic appeal in February. Judge Caldwell blocked a deportation order. Routine stuff, it happens all the time. But the tone he used turned heads. He didn't just point to the law, he gave the government a lecture on moral duties that outweigh administrative efficiency. White House officials were fuming. One top DOJ figure issued a warning that should have served as a wake-up call. This judge isn't interpreting the law, he's replacing legal precedent with his own policy goals. And at a certain point, that stops being justice and starts being something else entirely. Did anyone pay attention? Did anyone pull back? Not even close. Week after week, Judge Caldwell ramped up his interference. He didn't just rule on cases, he handed down massive declarations about the limits of executive power. He demanded files the DOJ insisted were confidential. He cited government lawyers for contempt when they didn't move fast enough. With every decision, he pushed the envelope, and every time, he got away with it. The crisis over Witness 14 had been simmering for weeks before the breaking point. Court records revealed the administration had been trying to get his testimony on the books for nearly a month. Every single time, Judge Caldwell found a technicality to stall. Then came the secret motion. 3 days before Witness 14 was locked up, Judge Caldwell received a confidential filing from a mystery party. No one in the administration knows what it contained. No one outside that judge's inner circle has laid eyes on it. But something in those pages flipped the script. All of a sudden, a witness who had been helpful became a national security threat. All of a sudden, testimony that was ready to go was delayed indefinitely. All of a sudden, a man protected by the feds was behind bars. The trap was set. The witness was gagged, and J.D. Vance had no clue that when he stepped into that briefing room, he was entering a combat zone that would define his entire term. Drop a like if you can see where this is headed, because the clash between Vance and Judge Caldwell isn't just a political show. It's a head-on collision between two versions of who actually governs this country. And the leaked audio? It's about to flip the board. And then it broke. The leaked audio starts with muffled noise, a door slamming shut, the rustle of papers. Then Vance's voice, sharp and freezing. Play it back, the part where he mentions preferences. The courtroom recording plays. Judge Caldwell's arrogant tone fills the classified room. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. Then Vance, barely holding it together. This judge just threw a federal witness in jail to prevent him from exposing judicial coordination with outside groups, and he did it on tape. And he thinks we're going to file a motion and wait half a year? A staffer speaks up, sounding nervous. "Sir, the official protocol is..." The official protocol is exactly what he's banking on. He knows by the time an appeal is settled, Witness 14 will be irrelevant. That isn't judging. That isn't even a performance of judging anymore. More silence. Then the phrase that is currently everywhere. If Judge Caldwell wants a war with the White House, he just found one. I want every resource we have on his desk by Friday. Every legal lever, every enforcement tool, all of it. A voice tries to bring up the separation of powers. Vance cuts them off. Separation of powers works both ways. He just separated a protected witness from his legal rights. Now he finds out what happens when the executive branch stops playing nice. 37 seconds. That's all it took. 37 seconds to ignite a total war between the vice president and a sitting federal judge. But here is what everyone overlooked while they were fixated on Vance's temper. Listen to the final 5 seconds of that recording one more time. There is a voice in the background, someone the media hasn't identified yet, muttering 3 words. The list worked. What list? Worked? Stay tuned, because what that mystery voice implies is that Witness 14's arrest wasn't just Judge Caldwell acting alone. It was a coordinated strike, and someone just admitted it. This wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. This was Vance realizing the conspiracy he'd feared was actually real. Don't go anywhere. What I'm about to reveal about that voice in the background changes the entire game. Drop a comment right now. Who do you think said the list worked? Because when I tracked that audio, I uncovered something that sent a chill down my spine. Experts are calling this the most significant constitutional crash since Watergate. One former federal prosecutor, a man who has stood before the Supreme Court more times than he can remember, put it this way: what we are witnessing isn't a legal disagreement. It is a contest for legitimacy. Both branches are now asserting that the other has overstepped its bounds so fundamentally that the standard rules no longer apply. When you reach this point, there is no umpire. There is no higher court. There is only raw power. What does that actually mean in plain English? It means we have entered a zone where the Constitution offers no clear-cut answers. Both factions can cite legal history. Both factions can claim they are the ones protecting democracy. And both factions are prepared to escalate. Here is the truth that constitutional experts are only whispering to one another in private. The administration is getting ready to trigger enforcement powers that haven't been utilized since the 1950s. Judge Caldwell is aware of this. He is gambling that they won't actually follow through. If he is wrong, we are headed for a standoff between U.S. Marshals and courthouse security. No one wants to admit that out loud, but that is exactly where this is going. But it isn't just the administration's base saying this. Even those who have been vocal critics of Vance are acknowledging a harsh reality. Look, I believe the vice president's rhetoric is inflammatory, but I also cannot justify what Judge Caldwell did. You do not lock up a federal witness to kill a testimony. You just don't. Whatever his motives, that single act was so far outside the judicial norm that it's easy to see why the response has been volcanic. The takeaway is obvious. This is no longer about immigration. This isn't even about Witness 14 anymore. This is about who holds the final say when the courts and the executive branch reach a total deadlock over the meaning of the law. That question has been simmering beneath American politics for decades. Now it has boiled over, and no one knows how it ends. Hit that like button if this breakdown is making sense to you, because grasping what is actually occurring behind the media noise and the political spin is the only way to see where we are headed. And believe me, where we are headed is completely unprecedented. So, how does this affect you? Right now, every federal judge in the system is on high alert. According to sources within the Judiciary, emergency sessions have been convened in at least 4 separate circuit courts. Judges are being briefed on new security measures. Some are requesting personal protection details. Here's the thing. If you think this only impacts the elites in Washington, you're wrong. Those judges make decisions that impact your tax bill, your land rights, and your business. When the bench feels under siege, they don't become more cautious, they become more defensive, and defensive judges hand down unpredictable rulings. Within the next 14 days, look for the administration to unveil enforcement steps against what they are labeling judicial obstruction. No one is certain what that looks like yet, but the possibilities range from bypassing court mandates to potentially detaining court staff who block federal operations. If you are someone who cares about the rule of law on either side of this is the moment where words turn into actions. But it's the long-term outlook that is truly haunting. If Vance stays the course, if the executive branch begins treating specific court orders as invalid and void, the president is set forever. Every future commander-in-chief, regardless of party, will inherit this strategy. Courts that oppose the government could be sidelined. Judges who resist could be isolated, investigated, or even worse. That isn't an exaggeration. That is what legal scholars are publishing in academic journals right now. And here's the question no one is willing to ask. What if the administration is right? What if Judge Caldwell actually is conspiring with outside activists? What if Witness 14 truly was on the verge of revealing evidence that would shame or implicate the judiciary? What if the legal system really has been turned into a weapon against a democratically chosen administration? In that scenario, what is the right move? Do you write a stern letter? Do you file an appeal that drags on for years? Do you sit quietly while the system is rigged against you? Because that is the case Vance is building. Not that he is above the law, but that the law is being hijacked by the very people who have seized the institutions meant to uphold it. If that is true, then following the rules simply means losing by the rules. And while that is a chilling thought, it is the exact thought fueling everything you are seeing today. And then Vance took it a step further. After the recording went public, and the administration knew it would, the vice president did the unthinkable. He owned it. Not with hesitation, not with safe, lawyer-vetted talking points. He stepped before the microphones and declared, "Yes, that's me on the tape. Yes, I made those comments, and yes, I stand by every syllable." Rather than retreating, he charged forward. Judge Caldwell jailed a protected federal witness specifically to kill testimony that would have revealed judicial misconduct. Let that sink in. A sitting federal judge used his bench to block the path of justice. If that doesn't qualify as a crisis, nothing does. The digital backlash was instantaneous. Hashtag Impeach Caldwell dominated the trends for 6 hours, while hashtag Protect Our Courts surged in response. The nation fractured right before our eyes. But here is where the danger peaks. Hours after Vance spoke, word leaked that specific federal departments were being told to rethink their compliance protocols with courts that have opposed the administration. That is insider speak, but in plain English, it means the executive branch might stop obeying judicial mandates. Judge Caldwell fired back via the court's press office. The bench will not be bullied. This court will uphold its constitutional duties irrespective of political threats. Then he included a line that threw D.C. into a frenzy. The witness is being held for his own safety. The vice president's rhetoric has made that detention more essential, not less. Safety from what? From whom? Vance's camp responded in less than an hour. If Judge Caldwell thinks the vice president is a danger to a witness, he needs to state that under oath. Otherwise, he's hiding behind smears to justify an illegal arrest. This isn't cooling off. It's intensifying, and both factions are now backed into corners where a retreat looks like a total defeat. But here is the detail that's haunting me. Where is Witness 14 at this very moment? The administration is in the dark. Caldwell's office is silent. The U.S. Marshals tasked with his safety have been reassigned. Why was that secret motion submitted 3 days before the arrest, and who was behind it? Sources are informing me that the White House has secured logs showing strange contact between Caldwell's staff and at least 2 activist groups in the weeks leading up to this. They aren't making the files public yet, but they are signaling that the evidence is in hand. The DOJ is currently drafting what one insider termed the nuclear option, though the specifics remain under wraps. Vance allegedly informed his inner circle, "We are done asking. Now we are ordering. Something is coming. And when the levee breaks, we are witnessing the biggest constitutional showdown in generations." This isn't a policy debate. This is a war over who really holds the keys to the American government. And currently, both sides are convinced they will prevail. Subscribe immediately because the next update drops as soon as the news breaks. Based on what I'm hearing from both sides, that moment is imminent. Enable notifications. When this blows up, and it will, I'll be the first to report it. Here is the current status. Witness 14 is still being held at a secret federal facility. His legal team has filed urgent motions, but Judge Caldwell has blocked them all. The administration's official reply to the detention is due within 72 hours. The vice president is set to give a major speech on judicial oversight later this week. No drafts have leaked, but aides are calling it historic. Meanwhile, Judge Caldwell is reportedly conferring with other judges about unified responses to White House pressure. But here is what the headlines are missing. multiple insiders tell me the White House has already pinned down the two activist groups that were in contact with Caldwell's chambers. They're building their case and plan to go public before Vance's speech. Keep an eye out for news regarding judicial ethics probes in the next 48 hours. That is the signal. If those probes are announced, it means the administration is finished playing defense. They're launching an offensive against the bench. The timer is running, and the events of the next few days could permanently alter how the American government functions.
But here is what is keeping me awake at night. J.D. Vance is launching his offensive at this very moment. It has the appearance of justified fury. It looks like an administration finally striking back against a bench that's overstepped. But I have been covering these stories long enough to know they never have a tidy ending. That mystery voice on the leaked recording, the one claiming the list worked, still hasn't been named. Witness 14's whereabouts are still a complete unknown, and there is a whisper echoing through D.C. that just won't go away, that Judge Caldwell is holding onto evidence of his own, something that justifies his moves, something that would flip the entire script if it ever surfaced. Is that a sign of panic? Is it the truth? Or is it a psychological op designed to make the administration second-guess itself? I don't have the answer yet, but I am certain of this. Whatever comes next is going to be larger, grittier, and more volatile than anyone is forecasting, because this ceased being about a single witness and a lone judge the second that audio went viral. This is now a fight over who truly governs America, the leaders who are voted in or the officials who never have to be. The question is, will you be here when the truth finally emerges? Subscribe, turn notifications on, because when this erupts, and it is going to erupt, I will be right here. And believe me, something is about to